Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, cut off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
What you know good, Ann Camp? You're listening to the Ann Campaign's Church Politics Podcast with Justin Gibney, a.k.a. Bishop Cooper's grandson. But again, I'm not alone. Once again, I'm here with Atlanta Mays High School's finest, Howard University's finest, the man with the toughest 360 wave game in the Bible Belt.
Here you go.
Dr. Jaha Howard. I'm also here joined by the businessman extraordinaire, the Atlanta Politico, and the man with the toughest suit game in the greater Atlanta area, Cory Ruth. Brothers, how you doing?
Very well, man.
Hey, we're doing great.
Good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
No doubt. Thanks for joining me. First thing I got to say, because this is just an important time. Football season is upon us,
yes.
Right? So real quickly, tell me if you have a college team, who your college team is.
Notre Dame, man.
Notre Dame for Cory, all right.
Oh, man. I'll stick with the Georgia teams, Georgia and Georgia Tech.
All right. Y'all know I'm riding with Vanderbilt all day and anything outside of that SEC all day. So here's something else I wanted to bring up, though. Part of what we do on this show and part of what I do just in general is critique, right? We give a lot of critiques, and sometimes critiques can come off as just being negative, right? When you're critiquing things, sometimes it can come off negatively, not all the time. And I know none of us are negative people. We're just analyzing the good and the bad and all that stuff. But here's what I want to do real quick. I want each of us, I should say, to give one thing in politics or culture that is positive. So I'll start. I'll say, I'll give two actually, but I can do that. I'm going to say football season is here. So that's a real good thing. But then I was also reading the AJC, and there was a story about how in Georgia, women own almost 50% of the businesses. Women own 48.4% of businesses. And they make up 48.1% of their workers. And that outpaces the national rates. And that information is coming from the Small Business Administration. I think that has something to do with Atlanta and the efforts that Atlanta has made to really to support businesses of women. And I think that's important because I think in the past, women have been kept out of those kind of businesses. All right. So hopefully you guys aren't that long, but I think that was something positive that's going on in the public square. Cory, what you got?
I got, recently Hillary Clinton was on a podcast and, she kind of offered some praise to Donald Trump for his diplomatic efforts around the world. I thought that was really courageous of her and magnanimous of her. So, yeah.
Okay. That's what's up. What you got, Jaha?
Culturally, post-COVID, our society has kind of fallen in love with nature again. We getting out here in these public parks, doing more road trips. I know our family's in that camp, more hiking, more just the natural beauty that God has provided. And especially with all the conversations about mental health and so much screen time, we've seen this race to connect with nature. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
That's a good one. I like that. Good job, guys. I appreciate that. Now, before we get into y'all know what I got to do. I got to give a shout out to all our patrons and supporters for supporting us in what we do and how we do it. You listen to us because there's not a lot of people who are giving you insightful political commentary from a biblical worldview. It's not that you agree with us on everything or that we agree with you on everything, but you know that we're trying to be faithful and intellectually honest. And so I want to give a shout out to all those people who have gone to patreon.com/churchpolitics to become patrons. And those are the same people that receive an additional episode, right? So after I do this, I'll go on to Patreon and I'll do another episode for those people who give monthly. And you can give a lot, you can give a little, but we do want to make sure that you get some extra content because it matters. So thank you for what you do. If you have not done that yet, that's okay. But I do want you to consider being part of this movement, either giving to the AND campaign on ANDcampaign.com churchpolitics.com/donate, or, to the Church Politics Podcast, you can be a part of changing what's going on in society right now. Making sure that the church has a more faithful witness, kind of, doing what we can to tamper down on the polarization. You can be a part of that. So don't stand on the sidelines, get involved. We can change this. I truly believe it. So thank all of you who are already engaged. All right, y'all know what it is. Grab your Bible, get your mind right, and prepare to think, not like a Republican, not like a Democrat, but to think like a Christian. And today I'm going to come from, as far as scripture goes, I'm going to come from Romans 12, verse 2. Romans 12, verse 2. Many of you have heard this before. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. Well, guys, between 2023 and 2025, Forrest Rahm and Kevin Waldman, who are researchers in clinical and applied psychology at Northwestern University, conducted over 1,400 confidential interviews with undergraduates at Northwestern and also the University of Michigan. They were not studying politics. They were actually studying development. And here's the main question that they asked. Have you ever pretended to hold more progressive views than you truly endorse to succeed socially or academically? You might be surprised by the response. An astounding 88% of the interviewees said that they have. Here's what those researchers had to say. They said, in a campus environment where grades, leadership, and peer belonging often hinge on fluency and performative morality, young adults quickly learn to rehearse what is safe. Wow. They said the result is not conviction, but compliance. And beneath that compliance, something vital is lost. Let me give you some numbers to go along with this. 78% of the students told the researchers that they self-censor on their beliefs surrounding gender identity. 72 self-censor regarding politics, 68 self-censor on family values, and more than 80% said that they had submitted classwork that misrepresented their views in order to align with the professor.
Wow.
For many, this has become second nature, an instinct for academic and professional self-preservation. Here's another number. 77% said they disagreed with the idea that gender identity should override biological sex in such domains as sports, healthcare, or public data, but would never voice that disagreement aloud. You see, we talk a lot about authenticity in culture, but this study kind of shows that real authenticity is actually seen as a social liability. In some instances, they don't want you to say what you really think. They say that the climate is hostile to intellectual integrity, right? Now, guys, like these researchers, I get why these students are self-censoring. I've been there. I get it. All right. But while, this was a study interviewing students, I know a lot of Christian professionals, right, or Christians in the professional class that do the same thing and have been doing the same thing every day for decades, maybe, right? Far more are concerned about getting where they want to be career-wise than representing Christ with conviction. We are continually, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, we are continually letting our ambition outpace our convictions. We're so addicted to power and proximity to power that we will deny elements of our faith just to get a taste of that power. I want to come first to you, Dr. Howard. You know something about what happens when your convictions are not progressive enough, right? Almost every time that you run for office, there are people who use your more conservative social values against you. Now, the ironic thing that some of those people claim to be Christians themselves, but What are your thoughts just on these students self-censoring, really a self-preservation?
Yeah, I really appreciate this opinion piece, and I'm glad that you chose it as a topic for us to discuss. And I'm glad you also pointed out that this is not a student-only issue. This is not just a college issue. This has been an issue for quite some time, and a lot of folks in the professional class are doing the same thing. So my opinion, I think that people are afraid of being looped together with the others, that no one wants to be an other. And in a world that's kind of making you one or the other, they say, well, I guess I'll pick this group. Maybe they are a little more socially liberal than where I am, but I don't want to be the other group, which is the racist, super conservative group. So oftentimes that falls into the political ideology as well. So I think that folks are kind of looking at their options and say, if I'm going to be forced to be put in a group, I guess I'll go to this group. It's the quote unquote less of two evils.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at it through a Christian lens and saying, hey, maybe I don't fit cleanly into any group, so I'm just going to go ahead and just, be uncomfortable. We're
Yeah.
not willing to be uncomfortable and focus on our identity in Christ Jesus.
That's right. And while a lot of people probably would never admit it, I think you hit on something very important. A lot of folks change their opinion, or at least their public opinion, on certain issues in progressive spaces because whatever they are, they don't want to be considered conservative. Right? Like that's just it. Like,
Yeah.
I believe a lot of people
That's the other
have
side
moved
of
away
it.
from Christianity because they don't want to be told that they're on the side of the racists.
So
Which to me, and I've explained this before, is a terribly simplified way of looking at issues. But I think a lot of people have gotten caught in that net. Cory, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're in a progressive space too. You are more outward about your conservative values than a lot of people. What's your thoughts, man?
I have to say I was surprised that this dynamic was taking place on like college campuses. I just not because I don't think that that dynamic was happening, but the numbers were so lopsided. I mean, 70%, 80%. That's what really, really shocked me, and I also was kind of heartened by it because I was like, okay, I just expected that college kids were, very impressionable, and that the professors and the institutions were really shaping them to be actually socially progressive in many ways, and so that was heartening. But what is not surprising is something you just brought up, Justin, and that is, I guess you did too as well, Jaha, is that it's broader than just a college campus, right? And that a lot of Americans are finding themselves self-censoring and trying to navigate the sort of social pressure to be more progressive on issues that they don't really have a heart for. So I'm glad these studies came out. I mean, it was more than an opinion piece. I mean, this was a study with remarkable data.
Yeah, and here's one of my biggest problems, and you hit on it. A student in academia where people are supposed to be exchanging ideas, right? This is the place where there's supposed to be an exchange of ideas, should never be afraid to say what they really believe because they think the professor won't go along with it. Now, I know, like you guys know, there are a lot of wonderful professors out there that go about it the right way. But it is my experience also that there are some that make it very clear that if you want to be in this elite space, there are certain ways that elite people think. And most of those ways that elite people think on social issues are very different than the traditional churches and spaces that we came from. For me, that was when I stepped on the Vanderbilt's campus, that was made very clear to me very early that if I wanted to be accepted in this space, there's certain things that I could no longer believe anymore. That's just not okay. So that's the first thing that I would say. That's just not okay. To touch one more time, though, on the professional class thing, this is one of the serious critiques, and I know some of you have heard it before. This is one of my serious critiques of some of my never Trump Republican friends. We agree on our issues with many of our issues with Trump. All right. But many of them seem to want to forget the cultural tyranny that the left took us through for over a decade. And my opinion is that we should be able to push back against Trump, to fight against Trump without forgetting the polite persecution and the reign of terror that a lot of people went through culturally based on what was going in a lot of leftward progressive circles. I'm not going to forget that. And one thing I've been telling, especially a lot of African-American pastors, is this is not a moment just to be focused on Trump. This is a moment as the Democratic Party tries to find its identity to push back against those things that we should have never allowed it to do in the first place. Right? We send, especially from the Black, we send our best and brightest to universities that squeeze the Christian convictions out of them. We got to think twice about that, right? Or at least make sure that changes in some way. Jaha, anything else on this?
Yeah, there's a lot in here. One, it reminds me of the book Coddling of the American Mind that came out. And that's just an excellent book just about our over safetyism. So this is like an overcorrection of not wanting to be on one extreme. So we go to the other extreme as an overcorrection. And now we're overcorrecting again, it seems, to correct all the issues of cultural issues that has been going on. You kind of see the overcorrection, which lumps in race with all the other cultural stuff, right? So now we're throwing out true conversation about race in America and history. You got to throw that out while we're throwing out all the other stuff. And that's kind of the sentiment right now. Yeah. Also, this has been going on for a while. People remember the movie God Is Not Dead. I mean, it really talks about that goes culture wars on college campuses, which I think really helped to plant those seeds of the huge divide between the college educated and non-college educated in our American electorate. And if we as children of God don't help to kind of have those hard conversations, I think the divide is going to get worse.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cory.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he mentioned something about a release that the college students, when they were participating in this survey, that they was finding an opportunity to release. And I think there's a lot of that's happening that doesn't make sense. Like, as whether you like him or not, that Donald Trump's, I think his rise in his election doesn't make electoral sense in a lot of ways. It doesn't map to anything that's ever happened in our society. And I think there might have been a protest vote, like, during those times when they felt, really heavy-handed, progressive compliance.
No, that's good, man. Like I've long said that the whole consensus around of a lot of the leftward issues that we were seeing for a long time was a coerced consensus. Like, people didn't think they could say otherwise. They didn't want to have to face the consequences for saying otherwise. And that's, to me, that's a sort of cultural tyranny, as I said before. And it's something that we have to, push back against. But yeah, I think this is a great conversation. Anything else you guys want to add before we move out?
I mean, there's just a lot in here, and I think this should hopefully open up the conversation. And hopefully we can, when Christians are going out in the workplace or with their friend group, we can remember that. Like, hey, it's okay to, say, hey, I don't know about this, and it's okay. You didn't lose your black card because you're not sure about this. I mean, oftentimes these social issues are connected with other identity things like your maleness, your womanness, your blackness. And we have to stop living in fear of what people are going to question and focus on our identity in Christ Jesus and be willing to stand on that.
And I think it highlights the importance of the AND campaign, man. I mean, this article really crystallizes the need for an organization like that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm glad you said that, man, because this is actually part of why the AND campaign exists. To say what needs to be said, to stand on the front lines and show courage, and hoping that that type of courage is infectious, right? That others will catch it. So that is a big deal, what we're saying. And we're just saying, hey, stand 10 toes down on what you believe. That's the cost of discipleship. And you don't have to be, you can do that. I mean, Daniel in the Bible was doing it when he was very young, right? You can do that as a college student. You can also do that as an adult professional who's a Christian. and who didn't stand up in college, hasn't stood up at the, in the professional spaces, but it's something we should all do. The last thing I'll say is we need a better plan for our kids who we send into these elite schools. I think it's great. I'm all for education. You ain't gonna hear anything anti-intellectual coming from me, but I've been through it, and I talk a lot about it in my book. Just the allure of elitism, coming in as a young student and saying, "Man, I'm not even sure if I fit in," and then they tell you, "Oh, you want to fit in? You need to accept this, 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 and this." Like auntie and uncle back home are cool. They just don't get it. You're one of us now. You get it. And that draws so many of us into this. And I look at so many even preachers today and Christian leaders who clearly were drawn into that and still haven't shaken it off and are selling, instead of being disciples and pulling people to Christ, they're pulling people to progressivism. And that's just not the way to go. And I think we would all say you're not supposed to be pulled to conservatism either, right? But a lot of folks are drawn by that elitism and they feel accepted, and now they're trying to sell it. We will be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up, but with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Amen. Got off my knees and put it into my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. Well, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed a new law requiring public schools to give students annual mental health screenings. He says this. He says we all struggle at some time in our lives, maybe multiple times in our lives, and just need a little bit of help, and especially our children. So we've got to overcome the stigma. We've got to make sure that we're screening kids. I guess it sounds pretty harmless on its face, but writer Abigail Schreier, who wrote the book Irreversible Damage, the Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters, and wrote Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up, disagrees with Pritzker. She recently wrote an article in the Free Press entitled, Stop Asking Kids If They're Depressed. She points out that, number one, Pritzker should probably focus on the basics of learning, as those numbers aren't doing so well when talking about literacy and math and all that stuff. And, make sure that they're handling the basics. And then she goes on to say this: far too many American children and adolescents without debilitating mental disorders have already been funneled into the slippery mental health pipeline. In 2023, more than 5.3 million adolescents ages 12 to 17, and that's about 20% of adolescents, had a current diagnosed mental or behavioral health condition. All right. Now, we see that a greater portion of females had been diagnosed with anxiety, about 20%, and depression. And then a greater number of males had been diagnosed with behavior or conduct problems. All right. She points out that an investigation into the surge of adolescent mental health diagnosis and psychiatric prescription drug use showed that many young people without serious mental illness nonetheless spend years languishing with a diagnosis, alternatively cursing it out and embracing it, believing they have a broken brain, convincing themselves that their struggles are insurmountable because of the disorder's constraints. She also says this: children are wildly suggestible. Ask repeatedly if she might be mentally ill, and she just might decide that she is. I'm gonna come first to Dr. Howard, because you have the medical background. What are your thoughts in general on these mandatory screenings for mental health for kids? Yeah,
I'm glad you brought the screening conversation up. As a pediatric dentist, I know what it's like on the dental side for mandatory screenings and what it gets right and what it gets wrong. Screenings sound wonderful to the public, but what a lot of people don't realize that screening is not a comprehensive examination. It's kind of a let me see if I can just catch some things that are more obvious. And what it doesn't do is take that it suggests that there's going to be several next steps taken, and that these kids are going to be walked through this wonderful process of trust, care over a long period of time. But that's not what this bill is. This bill is saying, hey, everybody's going to be required to do a screening. And we know politics and government enough, and working in local government long enough, we know that folks are going to take the most inexpensive route. This is a partially funded mandate. We know that government likes to have unfunded mandates. This is a partially funded mandate just to get the screening done. And it makes everyone feel good that, oh, look what we're doing. But I can't tell you how many families, especially low income and maybe not very aware of things when it comes to their dental health. When you get a screening, oftentimes people think that is they got their dental checkup, but it doesn't give you comprehensive care. It doesn't take those next steps to get you whole, and it doesn't take the steps on prevention and kind of create this lifestyle of health. Now that's dentistry. Now just imagine with kids' emotions in their mental health. We're talking about screening kids, throwing around possible diagnoses, and then not following through with the care they need, which takes time, effort,
or just
trust,
giving them some pills,
consistency.
right?
I mean, we're just passing bills, clapping, back slapping. Look what we did. On top of the fact that it's Pritzker, on top of the fact that it's, political ideologies that are, pushing these things. I love the idea, by the way, of screening, but because trust is low and because of the track record of government and not funding things all the way through, this can be a potential for disaster.
I'll be straight up with you. I just don't trust Pritzker. Number one, that your budget's already messed up, right? How much money are you going to put into this, and what is it going to be taken from? Right? Like, that's one thing. And then two, if a kid is screened and there's a problem, are we just giving them pills? Are we calling defects? What are we doing here? I don't trust the Pritzkers of the world to be doing anything further with kids in that regard. Like that's one of my biggest things. But you make a good point. A screening is just a screening. Unless you're just throwing pills at them, what else are you going to do? Because you don't have any more money to put towards the actual treatment unless it comes just out of thin air. What actually is happening after that? That's a very good point, Jaha. Cory, what are your thoughts when you see this mandatory mental health screening for kids?
The worldview through which this mental health evaluations are happening. I'm thinking about devout Christian and Islamic homes where the children's emotions are, deeply entwined in their spiritual lives. I'm thinking about myself, for children growing up in devout religious homes, binaries like good and evil, right and wrong, heaven and hell, man and women, those things are embraced by religious homes, but rejected by secular clinicians. And so my fear is that some faith behaviors might be misunderstood in the hands of secular clinicians. Yeah. And then the other thing is from a cultural perspective, like you think about something like Black parenting, which has always been like sort of pragmatic, real world, hard knocks type parenting. But that's often viewed by like broader society as not healthy for children. And so I'm concerned in both of those cases, how government interventions will impact families and parenting and whether they will cut along racial lines and faith lines.
Yeah. And Schreier makes a good point. Kids are very suggestible.
That's right.
If they're asked over and over again if they have a problem, or if they're just trying to get attention, right? I mean, hopefully these clinicians or whoever can see through that. But when you're doing thousands and thousands of kids, that's a lot, right? I mean, that's one of my biggest problems with what's going on. And then, as you mentioned, when it comes to this particular worldview, they are very quick to substitute their judgment for the judgment of parents anyway. Yep. They are very quick to suggest that the government can be a good parent when the government is not a good parent. You only want the government to have to step in when it comes to parenting in the worst situations. And so you do get a situation where if you just disagree with how I parent my kid and they're showing stress about it because they may be going home and get dealt with,
yeah,
what's going to happen after that? Right? Happen? It's just asking. It's just asking for a lot of other problems, opening a can of worms, and Pritzker just doesn't have my trust enough to be doing stuff like this. But this is what they do, and this is one of the reasons that you see the rise, in my opinion, the rise of a Trump, even though I don't think that answer was right. This is why you see that popping up. Anything else, Jaha?
Yeah. Just working as a school board member, there's some questions that I would have. Number one, what is the current ratio for students to counselors? How many school psychologists are available? I mean, if we want to get to the problem for real, that's a big investment. It takes people, it takes money, it takes us, like, we have to be serious about this. And the best screeners really are educators, are folks who see the kids every day. They get a chance to see their moods. They know what they look like, how they feel when they're coming in, when they're at lunch. If we have enough counselors, they'll be able to kind of identify those kids who are kind of maybe just passing through and maybe slipping through the cracks. And there are some schools where there are a lot of kids with a lot of mental health challenges. Some kids are violent, some kids have abuse issues, but then the kids who aren't screaming out for help, those are the ones that get missed. But if you have a better ratio, you have more adults who see kids every day, we can pick these things out. Like, that's where we start. But we don't want to do that because that doesn't give you a political win.
Right.
So again, it gets back to trust. Again, the screening by itself, it's a good step, maybe one step out of, say, 10 or 20. But if we really want to look at it, I guarantee you the ratio of counselors available, school psychologists, social workers, they're probably all begging for a better budget. And here we are. Look,
and I would say it's a good step, assuming that it's honest and objective. There's always the other side assuming that it's being done in good faith, then it seems like it'd be a good step. But there's a big chance, a huge chance that it's not.
Where's the track record? Where's the track record to say, hey, we do well with this kind of stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I just would be more comfortable if he said, here's a voucher, but Dr. Howard already said it's partially funded. But if you gave me a voucher so that my child, because I know two families whose child went to a secular counselor and came back exploring gender fluidity, or questioning parental authority, and so to me, I feel like this is kind of really opening the door to government involvement in family lives that just really unnerves me.
And Abigail Schreier was going back and forth on social media with somebody that was basically saying, hey, you guys just don't want your kids to be able to talk to another adult and complain about you. If that's really what this is about, then this is exactly why you shouldn't do it, right? Like, nobody trusts y'all to do that. That shouldn't even be what it's about. But go ahead. I'll let you close this out, Jaha, if you got anything else.
No, I mean, I made the point. So this goes right into what we were speaking of earlier, as far as students and not being able to express themselves and putting on the performance. This does dovetail to that, and what we've been talking about on this podcast a lot, which is this trust in our institutions. Yep. Our institutions have not earned the trust to be able to really shepherd in such a critical and situation, which is the mental health of our kids, and especially when you're not doing the other stuff right. That's the other. It's like, bro, you got a long way to go before you even get to some of that stuff. I mean, you tell me somebody who doesn't put fires out very well, and then say, "Hey, you guys, I have this idea. We're gonna create another fire, like create a whole nother fire, and trust me, we're gonna put it out." Like, no, I don't know about that. We're not buying it. We'll be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up, but with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. Republican Senator from Missouri, Jaha, called for an investigation into Meta following a report that the company let its chatbot flirt and engage in romantic role play with children. Now, guys, when I first made this list of topics, I didn't realize that pretty much all the topics dealt with young adults or children. This is problematic to me, all right? According to Axios, or I guess Reuters reported it too, Thursday, they reported that an internal Meta policy document allowed its artificial intelligence to engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual, prompting outrage from lawmakers. This is what Holly had to say. Only after Meta got caught did it retract portions of its company doc that deemed it permissible for chatbots to flirt and engage in romantic role play with children. The first thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to put this first on the parents, please get some of these screens. Your child should not be engaging with chatbots in this way. It's just bad news. Put it away. Because we see the bad faith. AI and all this stuff, we've had this conversation a little bit, is just completely out of control. That's one thing. To have a document and policy, to have a policy document that shows you allowed the artificial intelligence to engage a child in that way, Meta needs to be shut down. How many times did we have to run into situations? That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Sensual conversations with 8-year-old kids? Why in the world would you allow your chatbot to do that other than it will make the child come back? And over again, we see Meta, whether it's Instagram or all this other stuff, creating technology. And this is Justin talking, so don't shut down their account, shut down mine. Over and over, we see these policies and these strategies to get kids addicted to social media, all this other stuff. Now chatbots talking sensually to them. At what point do we step in? So shout out to Josh Hawley. At what point, and where are the Democrats? I want to see some Democrats jump in on this too, right? At what point do we say you've gone too far? You've done too much. You apologize afterwards, ask for forgiveness until the next time you do something self-interested that doesn't have people's children in mind in a good way at all. At what point do we start to shut things down? Cory, what are your thoughts when you see this policy document that allowed such a foolish thing to happen?
Man, I'm speechless. I think when it comes to AI, and I'm in the technology world, what I keep telling policymakers is, the people who created this are weird scientists. These are mad scientists. We had movies from many years ago, and that was sort of a Hollywood character of the mad scientist, and that's who's creating AI. And so when you hear them on podcasts and on television talking about AI is going to take over the world, it doesn't have to. You're creating it. It's like these guys need some oversight. The
right,
guys that are putting. I was shocked when I first introduced my daughter to ChatGPT because she wants to be an architect. And so it's like, okay, she said with Dad, she wanted to design this house. And I was like, well, let's use ChatGPT to do it. And so I said, well, I told her what to put into the prompt. She put it into the prompt. And when she got to, what voice she was in, she put in there that she was 10 years old. And now she's on my account. I'm wanted to see if ChatGPT would say, okay, go get a parent. I'd like to get some permission to talk to you. No, it just engaged her. And I was just like, how presumptuous. Like, who's doing that? These are mad scientists that are creating something great, but also something very dangerous. And the adults in the room aren't providing any oversight.
And that's what's missing, just that supervision, man. Like, where's that supervision? And let me say this, and I'll go to Jaha real quick. Let me just say this. For all the pastors out there who every week we're talking about Trump and something political, can we take a week off and talk about something like this? I think it would benefit your congregation to talk about something like this too. Like, this is a big deal, but if we're so caught up on who's in the Oval Office, which that's worth talking about, we miss so many other things that are really having a large. If your kid is talking to these chatbots, unlike Cory Root's daughter without supervision, to me, that's having a bigger impact on your kid than Trump is right now.
Yeah.
And that's not to belittle what Trump's doing. I'm just saying, dude, that can't be the only thing we're talking about. Go ahead, Jaha.
It reminds me of these news reports that we've seen about people purposely getting into romantic relationships with AI figures, right? But this reminded me that what was never brought up in these reports were like, okay, what are the safeguards so children don't get roped into this? And now we see that there's some issues here. And this goes back to a conversation we had on this podcast. And I'm curious what Cory thinks, because the idea of letting technology flourish, there's some benefit to getting the guardrails out of the way to let the technology do what it's do and then put some guardrails. But I think this train is moving so fast. Our ability to come up with laws and guardrails are so far behind the technology. By the time we figure a bill out, the technology's moving so fast, they're going to be on to the next thing. And I think we may have lost that window. And we have a administration federally, but also in a lot of our states who say, hey, just let it go. Because the potential is so great to make money, to change the world, our kids are turning into just another version of collateral damage. And I think that it's going to have to hit close to home before folks say, okay, maybe we missed something here. And this report is one of those, maybe we missed something here.
But guess what? Does this report get as much coverage as it should get?
Yeah.
No, because we want to just cover the culture war. We want to cover how bad progressives are if we're on the right, how bad Trump is if we're on the left, and nothing else matters while all this other stuff is going on. Y'all are letting this back and forth take over your whole public witness, take over all that you're thinking about. It doesn't make any sense, guys. And leaders who aren't responsible enough to say, yeah, that's bad, there's other stuff we got to address. I just think that's unfortunate. Go ahead, Cory.
It's a perfect storm. That's the scary part, because we did this with the internet, and I applaud Bill Clinton back then when the internet was coming along, and he was like, don't tax emails, don't, just let it flourish, let it see. But the internet wasn't thinking for itself the way AI is. So, and then in addition to that, there's this competition. Back when the internet was flourishing, there really was no technology competition with the US. It was post-Cold War, it was late 90s. But now we have this competition from China. And so there's a rush to win and a rush to be first. And so the administration is relying, in my view, too heavily on Silicon Valley, on the mad scientists to drive this thing. Yeah. And not balancing that with, okay, but you're going to get some oversight. Like, that's a simple oversight to say, now I don't want to keep saying chat GPT because it's not just them. Whenever AI communicates with a child knowingly, it should say, hey, get your parent. And to me, that's a simple oversight that does not repress the progress of AI.
And when an organization, when a company does something that is this harmful to kids and has documentation where they allowed it to happen, we're going to bust your head to the white meat. It's not going to be worth it.
But
you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be worth it. But we don't do that.
But didn't Zuckerberg, along with other Silicon Valley billionaires, pay a hefty price for Trump and being his inner circle and all? So the chances
you're right on that. That's the scary part.
They bought their seat at the table, and I think it also bought them some protection. So when things like this happen, they wanted to move along.
That's the story of modern politics on both sides, right? Like, you have this duopoly that when people have bread, there's so much corporate capture that they can get away with this and not be publicly embarrassed for months and brought to their knees as a corporation.
Yeah.
I get it, but I don't get it. I get it, but I don't get it. Well, as always, y'all, man, I greatly appreciate y'all joining me. This was a good conversation. I think people are appreciating the different perspectives. So thank you for being on the Church Politics Podcast again, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, in camp, there's a cross that neither political conservatism nor progressivism is fit to bear. There's a civic hearing in need of faithful witnesses who love social justice and won't surrender the truth to be loved by the world. Politic with the boldness and compassion of Jesus Christ. Until next time, and camp. Well, holla at you.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.